Hey everyone, welcome back to the cabin. As you can see, I am starting on this corner now. I always work left to right. I'm going to start on this corner and work my way this way. Then once I get this side completed, all I'll have is the back side. It's going a little bit slower than I anticipated, but I knew that that was going to happen when I changed my mind from lap siding to the board and batten, because it's kind of like doing it twice. I was just a little bit afraid that the green lumber may want to buckle or bow on me if I did the lap siding, and in order to help to prevent that, I figured that it might be better to go ahead and put the board and batten on. That way I've got it locked down on both sides, and then I've got the batten to help hold the corners to keep it from cupping. Although the batten may cup, but I think that they may be dried out enough. I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that they don't want to cup on me. And that's one reason that I kind of ran that caulking down that seam, just to help prevent, you know, any water that if they do loosen up, from getting back behind there and running in between the boards. And then the other thing too is, you know, it doesn't cost that much, so, you know, why not? If that is all sealed tight, then moisture shouldn't be able to find its way through. If it does, it will be able to run down the back side of the board. Anyway, so yeah, I'm getting ready. I just took off those nailers around that plastic. I'm getting ready to cut that and take it off. But before I do that, let me show you what I've got accomplished. Well, so now that we've got the front and the side done, I still need to go back and run a bead of caulk in between the frame of the window and the window itself around on the inside, and then I need to come back and run a bead of caulk here, because actually these three windows right here, I forgot those. I was trying to put these up in such a hurry, but I can go back, like I say, run a bead of caulk. I did do it on the top. I just didn't do it on the bottom, because I knew that the water, you know, wouldn't be able to run up. But I did do the tops of the windows, but I need to finish the sides and, like I say, go in here. But, you know, I'm really happy with the outcome and the way that it turned out and it looked. Once I get the door frame on right here and it dark, it will kind of pull this yellow, or it will subdue this yellow a little bit, and it's going to bring out more of this dark color. So what it's done by mixing and matching the light and the dark with not only the boards and the battens, it actually pulled it all together. So I'm really pleased with the way that it turned out, and I think that I prefer this over the way that I stained the boards on that other house that I had done, because the burnt, you know, it kind of flows, and it's not just all one color. So I am really pleased with the look of the cabin. So now the only thing that we've got left to do is this side and that side. I tell you, it's not getting on my nerves, but doing, like I said, the board and batten, it's kind of like doing it twice. But I'm hoping that, you know, maybe now since I've been doing it, that this side and this side right here will go a little bit faster. But the other thing that is going on is Patrick, my son, he's going to be making and videoing all the lights for the inside and the outside. And what we've decided to do is we're going to use the galvanized, the black pipe, and we're going to make sconces, and we're going to make mounts, different types of light mounts. We're going to make a light bar for the inside, and it's going to match the angle iron that I have put on the inside. So kind of be a mix of I guess, old school and industrial look that are working together. And since everything in there, you know, all the posts are black, and when I get my siding, I'm actually going to use exterior siding on the inside, on the bottom half of the wall. So when I burn it and then use this timber oil on it, it's going to do like the outside. It's going to pull everything together, and I think that everything is going to work good together. So I'm excited about that. So he will be actually videoing that, and you guys can follow along with him on building those lights. But anyway, I've got to get busy here shortly and get started on this, and hopefully I can get the radiant barrier on there, get it framed out, jump up top there and run my horizontal 2x4s, and maybe get some boards and some battens on here. I do have the small window that I purchased for this, and also for the kitchen over there. So this side is kind of like the other side. It's only got 2 windows in it. The back side will have 3 windows. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and like I said before too, I think I'm going to save all this plastic to make a greenhouse. So the greenhouse can actually be that wide, unless I decide to put 2 together, because with what I've got going on here, I could, you know, make a fairly large greenhouse. We'll just have to see. I'm going to have to figure out a place to put it where limbs and stuff don't drop on it and, you know, poke holes through the greenhouse. So that may be a project for later on towards, you know, the fall, or maybe even next year. But I am going to save that plastic so that I can actually do that. But anyway, yeah, this is this siding, doing it board and batten is like I said, it's like doing it twice. But anyway, I think it's turning out exceptionally well. Somebody commented that have I thought about putting snow guards up on the roof? Well, honestly, I haven't. Living here in East Tennessee, working for AT&T, and then working for the EMS system, I don't believe that any of the cabins here I've actually seen have snow guards, because it's very uncommon for us to get snow. Now, I know that we've had 4 this year, you know, and I think the deepest one that we had was 5 inches. But no, I actually hadn't thought about it. The thing that I did think about, though, was the fact that when I put up gutters, that I'll probably have to run some sort of supports up underneath the gutters so that, you know, it doesn't hang and want to pull them off, you know, the side. So I do have that in mind. And the guttering is actually something that I'm going to have to do fairly soon too, in the next several months, because before I get moved out here, I'm going to have to develop some sort of catchment system so that I can have water. Now the water will serve the shower, the water will serve the sink, and it will serve the washing machine. The drinking water, I always purchase that, so instead of digging a well and having, you know, the possibility of the well getting hit by lightning, since we have so many storms here, especially in the summertime, it will actually be humid in the morning, and then it will build up to a thunderstorm, especially in the mountains here. Now in town it's a little bit different, but in the mountains there'll be a lot of thunderstorms. So don't want to take the chance on that happening. When I built this other home, whenever a storm would come, we would just go hit the main breaker, and hopefully, you know, that didn't get hit. So but if I do the rain catchment system, then I won't have to worry about that. You know, I just have to worry about having a pump, you know, that's hooked into the power where I can pump it, you know, back to the house. Or if I decide to use a gravity fed system, I'll have to pump it from one tank up into a higher tank so that it's gravity fed down. Anyway, but yeah, that's something I'm going to have to do fairly soon. But as far as the snow, you know, we don't really have that many, and they don't amount to a great deal. Now in 1993 we did have one that was 24 inches, but that's really freaky. I am going to have a front porch so that snow would be able to come off on the front. And so the guttering, you know, I'm not really concerned about doing the guttering right now, especially on the front, because of that reason. On the back side, I do need to, they mentioned also something about a V-guard. I do need to put a V-guard, especially around where the pipe comes out to serve the wood stove, so that it would shed anything, you know, from pushing it over. But, you know, honestly, I really don't care anything about it dumping off the back there. But I still would need to support, you know, like I said, the guttering that goes along the back side there. So that's something that I'm going to have to take a look at fairly soon, because if I put guttering up on the front, I'm just going to have to take it back off in order to put the porch there. So what I may do is go ahead and set the post, build the roof, you know, because there's a whole lot going on here just in order to get moved, so I can go ahead and get that system put in where I can put the guttering on and get it run into the water, because I can always come back in there later on underneath and build a porch. But in order to have the roof on, I need to set the posts for the porch and go ahead and put that in. But yeah, great idea about the V support. I appreciate that comment. Somebody else said that you used to live in Michigan and that they've lived there their whole life. They would have thought that, primarily me having lived there, that I wouldn't be so fascinated about the snow. I'm not fascinated about the snow. I lived in it, you know, up to here quite a lot when I was a kid growing up there. But what fascinated me, and I think it's probably, like somebody else mentioned, due to the fact of the metal roof. I don't believe I've seen it on any other kind of roof. But due to the fact of the metal roof, and I had one over here too, but it may have been because the pitch was so steep that it didn't happen that way. But as the snow was coming off and melting, of course, you know, the temperatures were cold enough where it was happening very slowly. And so as it would come off and it was freezing, you know, the drips of water would run on around and it continued to freeze. Well, as the water came, you know, from underneath and it was running down and freezing, it just kept building its way out, you know, not true horizontal. I don't think it would be able to do that. You know, it had to be a little bit of an angle to it, but it almost looked like it was growing sideways. Don't believe that I have ever seen that in my life, anywhere that I have been. So, you know, I lived out in West Texas, up in the Panhandle for years, and they get a lot of storms out there and a lot of ice and a lot of snow. I don't believe I've ever seen it anywhere. So, but yeah, I think that one comment that I had, I think it may be particular to a metal roof. Of course, if I had the guttering up there, you know, it wouldn't have happened that way. So, but without the guttering, you know, I think that it was just, you know, the way that it happened, and that's why I wanted to take a video of that, because I'd never seen that before. Another comment was about sharpening the blades. The system that Norwood makes, it's one system. It's kind of set on a stand where you lay the blade down on top of it, and what it does is it has a machine that will advance the tooth one at a time. It'll come down, it'll sharpen it, and it sets the angle at the same time, and then it'll advance it one tooth and come down and do the same thing. And it, you know, I don't know how long it takes, but like I said before, they're $1,000, and I just figured that I would have to go through a whole lot of blades and a whole lot of trees to be able to recoup the investment of that $1,000 back. So, you know, I mean, I may at some point, if I decide to do a whole lot more, but so far I haven't really cut that many trees to justify spending another $1,000 on, you know, getting a blade sharpener, especially since the blades were, you know, 10 for, like I said, about $130. So again, you know, I could cut about 400 trees before I would, you know, be into the money as far as getting a blade sharpener. So, well, not quite 400 trees, but I haven't cut near that many to do what I've done up here. But we'll just have to see. You know, if I keep the sawmill afterwards, my intention was maybe when I was done at some point to sell it. But if I decide to keep it and buy the wheel system to, you know, the axle and so forth to put underneath it and haul it around to cut trees for people, I know that you can get like $300 or $400 per 1,000 feet. Of course, it's a lot of work, and I don't know that, to me, that would be worth it. But you know, there is a possibility that I could use it to generate an income later. But it is dangerous work. You know, it's not something that I don't think that really, honestly, that I would want to do. So I'm more likely to turn around and sell it when I'm done with it. So, but anyway, it has been a money saver though, being able to use it and, you know, use the natural resources that I've got in order to build the cabin and everything else that I have done here. Someone mentioned to look at some of the greenhouse and the planting ideas that some of the other YouTube channels have, and I have done some of that, but the idea that I've got for these raised beds as opposed to the greenhouse is because I can utilize that and plant, you know, basically garden vegetables. I could use it and plant flowers or whatever, but you know, I can't really do anything with that bank. And you know, I wouldn't want to erect a greenhouse that was only about 4 feet wide on that bank because you know, it would kind of look funny. But just the rustic look of the raised bed itself, I don't think takes away from, you know, the environment up here. And so that's the reason that I've got planned to set a couple more. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm hoping I can build 4.5 of them more. So that will give me 5.5 total, which is a pretty good area for planting. Of course, you know, the corn and possibly the potatoes, I'll have to do that old school where I don't actually use the raised bed system. But may pick out a flat spot down the field in order to do that. But the vegetables that I plan on growing up there, you know, will primarily all be used to can. Jennifer said that she would help me and teach me how to can some food this fall. So I want to go ahead and get those raised beds put in as quick as I can. That's the reason I'm trying to get this siding on, because it won't be long. You can tell I'm in shirt sleeve weather today, that you know, won't be long and the springtime will be here and planting season will be on. So that's something that I've got to think about here real quick as soon as I get the siding done on that house. And you know, like I've said before, the inside I don't think it's going to take that long to finish. You know, I do have to put the floor down, but I think I'm just going to do it in 4x8 sheets. I'm going to burn it and put several coats of clear finish on it. I've only got a couple of walls to build. You know, that I'm not going to have that much piping, and primarily a lot of the electrical is already run underneath. I just have to pull that up and run out, you know, what I'm going to do through the walls to put my switches in there. Let's see. The bottom half will go quick because basically I just intend on doing, you know, I don't know, I may rip the sheet because it's not quite 8 feet from the top to the bottom. So what I'll probably do is rip the plywood. I'll put a full sheet of the drywall up, and then whatever's left, the remainder on the bottom, I'll go ahead and put the plywood, like I said, that I'm going to burn, and then I'll run a piece of chair mold around through there, and that way I can kind of change colors, and it also gives me a nice kickboard on the bottom that, you know, you can bump into and you don't really poke any holes in the wall. So it's not really going to take a long time, I don't think, to finish that out. Of course, you know, I do have to put the insulation, I do have to hang the tongue and groove, and put the insulation up there in the ceiling, but yeah, I think that you know, just doing like I'm doing and working at it, you know, a little bit at a time, it won't be long and it'll all be done. But planting season will be here, so that's becoming a priority. And then the chicken house, you know, that's another priority. that I've got on my mind, but just the house itself, you know, where I can get the chickens in there where they can get up at night as long as I don't leave, because the extension that I want to put on it where they can get out and wander around during the day where it's kind of closed in from any predators. That's a section that I'll have to do later that will allow me some freedom. That way I don't necessarily have to be here. Just make sure that all the feeders are full, and then I can take off several days and not have to worry about it. You know, I've had some people say that I've been bringing back a lot of memories to them from their earlier years, and I would assume that, you know, it's folks like me that are getting up in age. But, you know, I was raised in the city actually as a young kid, and I was about 10 or 11 years old when we moved here. And, you know, I can remember the culture shock that I had because I wasn't used to it, you know. Of course, you know, it was a lot of fun in the beginning because, you know, now I was in an area where I could run and play, right? But that didn't last too long when my grandfather turned it into work. Because their dream was, you know, that as they retired to kind of move back to the farm. They were from Mississippi, Arkansas area, and they actually had left there during World War II and migrated, you know, north where the work was, where they could actually make more money than they did picking cotton in the South. So, you know, the story goes that they were paying $1 a day at that time, where they went to work at General Motors making parts for the Jeeps, the military, and so forth for the war. But anyway, to get back to my story, when we got here, like I said, their dream was to, you know, move back to the farm type life. So even though he was still working in the insurance business, once we got here, he gradually started building a farm. And we had, you know, some cattle, not too many head, but we had some cattle and a couple of ponies that we had fenced off, you know, and we were running those. And then I can remember, I think it was 3 years, we grew about 8 acres of corn. But I remember that corn planter that we had, you know, it planted 1 row at a time. And we would drive up and down that field down there planting corn. And like I said, it's about 8 acres. And then once the corn got big enough to harvest, after school when I came in, you know, I would drive the tractor down there, and we just had a small, like a 6x8 trailer that had 4-foot sides on it. And we actually put a gate on the back of it, and I would park it, and I would pull the corn off the stalk by hand, and I got pretty good at hitting that trailer with it and just pitch the corn in there, you know. And I did 8 acres that way, my sister and I, by hand. And it took, you know, quite a little while to get all that picked, but then we plowed it under, and the next year we did the same thing. But we had enough corn later on. There's a good sized corn bin down there by the old barn that I used to have that, you know, that corn lasted for even several years after that. So that's also what we would use to feed the hogs that we had. We had generally anywhere from 25 to 30 hogs. And of course, you know, some of them would get sold, but we killed about 2 every year. And we kept the freezer full of pork. And of course we had chickens, and once a week before school I would get up early in the morning and go out and take a couple of chickens, and my grandmother, you know, she would pluck them and work the meat up and put those in the freezer too. So we always had meat in the freezer. And then I mentioned the other day on one of the videos about the gardens, you know, she was really good at canning. And so downstairs we had a bunch of different shelves made. We also had a root cellar up there that we would keep onions and potatoes in. And then some of her jars that she canned, but also downstairs in the basement we had jams and jellies and all different kinds of things that, you know, this area right here is pretty well known for blackberries. You know, she would also get grapes and strawberries and different things, you know, and she would, like I said, make those jams. So we always had food, you know, kind of like a prepper. You know, we always had food
stockpiled that would last us through the winter. And you know, that's the way that I grew up. We would also, every weekend, we would take and we would come back up in these mountains. Of course, you know, we had more property at that time, and the roads that we used to take to get up on top of these mountains here was back off in that direction. But every weekend we would take and we would cut 2 loads, that same trailer, 6x8. We would cut enough wood to fill that thing up twice. Generally, we would eat breakfast in the morning, take off in that tractor, and cut a load of wood, bring it in. We would eat lunch, then we'd go back that afternoon, cut another load, and come back. And we would just stack it up in the woods and, you know, between trees. And we'd take a piece of tin and put across the top of it, so when the rain came down, you know, that it didn't just saturate what we had cut up. So I think probably, you know, until I was 18 years old, that's the way that we lived, cutting wood and preparing, you know, for the winter and getting things ready.
You know, another project that's going to be coming up is cutting this poplar tree right here. I probably should have never left it there when I built the shed around the sawmill. Of course, that was a couple of years ago. It wasn't nearly that big. It has grown considerably. You wouldn't imagine just what a couple of years would make on a poplar. But this one on the left side is not going to be hard, although I've got a stack of logs down there. But what I plan on doing is I'll take and cut this one off right here, and I'll let it fall, then I'll work it up, and then what I'll do is take and get up top there as high as I can, run a cable down to one of those other trees where I can actually hook the tractor up to it with my block and tackle, and then I will come down into here and I will cut a wedge with a lot of tension on it, and so it should come right on over. But yeah, it's leaning too much that way, and I know that sooner or later it's going to grow into the roof if I leave it there. So that's a project that's going to be coming up pretty soon that you know, could end up being a little bit on the hairy side because of the way that it's leaning. But I believe, like I said, with that cable up there, cutting a good sized wedge down here, putting a lot of tension on it, that it shouldn't be any problem, because I've cut quite a few of the other trees up there, you know, with a big angle to them, and pull them right over in the direction that I needed to. Because honestly, the way that one is leaning, by putting some tension on it, I might be able to almost kind of straighten it up a little bit, enough to, like I said, the only thing I hope that doesn't happen is it snap off right here and kind of kick back into the shed. But I think we'll be able to work it out. So that's another project that I don't know, I may go ahead and do that this summer, because the other thing about a poplar tree too is as it grows up, it sheds its bottom limbs, and I've had quite a few fall on the roof here with me working in there, and I hear a big bang. I'll be like, what the heck was that? And then I come out and I find a big limb laying on the roof. So there's quite a few up there that will be coming down at some point in time, so it might be a good idea to just go ahead and cut that thing out and get rid of it. And then what I may do is I may leave enough of that stump where I can actually build me, it's kind of like a table on the outside. I actually have a maple that I brought up here, stump, that I was going to put on the sawmill and saw it off in about 3 inches thick. And I mentioned that before, that I wanted to do that, but my sawmill is too small to handle it. So what I'm going to have to do is throw it on a trailer and take it over to one of the sawmills, the vertical type, you know, the old-timey sawmill, and get that sawn up. But yeah, I may go ahead and leave that stump where I can cut it off and build me some sort of an outdoor type, you know, workstation that I can mount that to. So
Let me go down here and I'll show you the stump, the maple stump I'm talking about. So here's the maple stump that I'm talking about. Of course, that's the small end, this is the big end. And as you can see, it's actually taller than the side of the trailer. So back here we're looking at probably 30 inches one way, 28 the other way. And my sawmill says that it'll take up to a 30-inch log, but I did have it set up on there and it just didn't work out. This front is primarily, let's see, about 27 and about 28 right there. But like I said, and it was hard to handle too. The only thing that I could have done would be to cut it this way, and I think what I would rather have is have it cut round, because I could get a lot of different end tables out of this. So it's pretty much, let's see, I've got about 42 inches right there. So I could get 10 of them if they were 4 inches thick. I could get several more if I make them 3 inches thick. So that's what I'm thinking about doing, is saving this to make end tables out of, to set around in the cabin, you know, up there at the outdoor kitchen, some of the other places, the structures that I'm going to build around here. So I really think that that's what I'm going to save this for. And it's just about all the tractor can do to lift this, because this right here is pretty doggone heavy. But anyway, I've still got a strap that's actually laying underneath it that I didn't take out, just so that I can pick it up and move it again. But yeah, that right there will make really nice end tables. The other thing I'm thinking about doing is, this time when I run the boards up, I'm actually going to run them across the window, and then I'll drill a hole in the corner, and I'm going to use that new Sawzall or reciprocating saw that was sent to us by Snapfresh, and use the window as a guide and cut that out so that I can basically let you know how that works. So there will be a review coming up soon on that, and then I've also got that leaf blower that I will actually be able to compare to the one that I bought from Harbor Freight. But that I use basically, you know, like blowing the sawmill off or doing the floors, which is a little bit harder to do now that I'm getting it closed up. But just kind of cleaning up and, you know, just, you know, outside and so forth. So I'll be able to give you a review on that. And hopefully on the reciprocating saw, since I don't have anything to compare it to, I don't want to compare it to my electric one, because that's not really, you know, a good comparison. But I'll be able to let you know under normal use how long that battery lasts, and basically how well it's doing. It seems to be built fairly well, so I'm looking forward to going ahead and putting that board up there, like I said, drilling the hole, and we'll see about using that window frame as a way to cut it out, and then I can kind of report to you, you know, how it works. So but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and shut this video down here. I need to get busy. It's actually noon now. I got out here a little bit late and had to get some preparations. This lumber that I had stacked here, what my intentions were was to work my way around to the pile. But when I ran into some of the lumber that I had stacked up and it actually had got wet, we went ahead and burned it the best that we could. Jennifer went ahead and stained it or put the oil on it, and so we're letting those dry out as much as possible. So then I decided to go ahead and use those on the back, which would be the very last. So I decided, I went ahead and moved that trailer that was sitting here that I had water barrels on. I moved that this morning and got that out of the way so I can actually work on this section and I'll use the 2x4s that I've got over there and kind of work my way this way so that I can get the ladders back in behind there to be able to do what I need to do. But anyway, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and shut this video down here, and I appreciate you guys stopping by and listening in. My son, my daughter, and I, we can't thank you enough for all the support that you guys give us. I know that I say this all the time, but it really means a great deal to us. Not only on this channel, but on our main channel too. So if you're new to this channel, this is basically behind the scenes. That's why we call it a review channel. The main channel, Smoky Mountain Outpost, that's where we do all the projects and the building and so forth. So this is a way that we can kind of communicate to you on all the different comments that you guys send, and we certainly do appreciate those. Keep them coming. We're sorry if we can't get back to you individually, but you know, the channels, the size of the channels and the amount of videos that we put out every week is getting, you know, much larger, and it's more difficult to respond to everybody. So this is a much easier platform to say, hey, you know, we appreciate everything that you guys are doing to sharing the channel and helping us to build it to reach more people. So again, many thanks to you guys, like I said, for all of your support. All three of us, we really do appreciate that. We hope that you guys have a great afternoon now, and we look forward to seeing you back up here at the cabin again next time. So I'll go ahead and say farewell. I'm going to get busy here and see what I can accomplish the rest of the day, and so we'll see you on the Outpost channel tomorrow.